Okay, there's just a different angle on it, more from the bird's eye angle. Another aspect of them being so crowded is chickens are social animals. They live in herds, and I'm sure you've all heard the expression pecking order. If you have a flock of birds, say 50, 60, even 80 birds outside, they rapidly develop a pecking order. That is, they know which are the stronger birds, the more aggressive birds that they would better keep away from, and conversely, they know which are the ones below them that they can dominate. And they sort out that pecking order, and once they've done it, there's not a lot of aggression between them. But you put 20,000 birds in a shed, and clearly they can't do that. And that means that they are, in a sense, at a loss to know how to relate to all these other birds around. Now, since Thanksgiving is coming up, I thought I would show you some turkeys. They're produced by much the same method. That is, they're in vast sheds, very crowded. There's one extra wrinkle with turkeys which makes it a great topic for Thanksgiving dinner. You may not be aware of the fact that the modern intensively produced turkey is unable to breed. It's been bred with a breast so big that the male simply cannot get the organ to the right place on the female. It just doesn't work. Now, you may say, well, that's tough for them, but then there are more turkeys, right? So turkeys keep happening. Every turkey, every factory farm turkey that is served on Thanksgiving is a result of artificial insemination, which means that there are people who spend their working lives grabbing male turkeys and masturbating them so that they ejaculate and collecting the ejaculate in a tube, and then there are other people, perhaps the same people, depending on the operation, who grab the females, hold them in a position where you can inseminate them, and with a little compressed air pump, blow a bit of the semen into the female so that there'll be more turkeys. Again, it's done with the emphasis on speed. My co-author, Jim Mason, of a book I have called The Ethics of What We Eat, worked for a day doing this to see what it was like. He said it was the worst, hardest, dirtiest job that he's ever done, and he was constantly abused by the people who'd done it longer for being too slow. And the only way to be faster is to be rougher on the birds than otherwise. Okay, pig production. This is a gestation crate, as it's called. This is a pregnant sow, the mother of the pigs that are sold typically for pork, ham and bacon. And during her entire pregnancy, she is confined like this, typically in an individual stall or crate, too narrow for her to turn around. She basically has nothing to do but stand up or lie down. And when she does lie down, she has no straw for bedding. She just has concrete, because if you had straw, you would have to change it now and again. That means there's more expense for the straw, more expense for the labour to clean it out. This is easier. You just have concrete, you just hose it down. But obviously it's less comfortable for her. If you give a straw, she'll play with it and bed in it pretty rapidly. You probably all know about veal crates as well. The veal industry has typically had individual crates as well to keep the calves from moving around too much, to prevent them getting any kind of grass which would turn the flesh a redder colour. So they're also individually crated, and they're denied straw too, not just for the labour costs of providing it, but because they would eat it. Because when you have pale pink veal at a restaurant, it's veal from an anemic calf. It had very low iron. That's why the flesh remains pale, even though the animal is now at an age where if it were out in the field, he would be eating grass. But that would turn the flesh reddish colour, and you don't get the same premium price for reddish veal. So you deliberately keep the animals away from anything that will cause them to get enough iron to keep the flesh that pale colour. Another shot of the pregnant sows, this time on metal slats rather than the concrete, but has the same effect. This shows how closely confined they are. They can't stretch their legs without putting them through the bars and touching their neighbouring animal. And this is what happens when they give birth. Now, if you have, pigs are naturally a forest animal, and if you have them in a forest, a day or so before they're ready to give birth, they obviously know that their time is close, and they start gathering all kinds of leaves and grass, and they actually make a large nest, a sort of comfortable nest to bed down in on the ground. And that's where they'll give birth, and that's where they'll look after their piglets while they're feeding them. Again, the typical factory farmer will not let them do that. That would involve more space, more cost, and they will tell you that there's a danger that the sow might crush one of the piglets. So this is called a farrowing crate. Notice how we don't use the same words for animals that we use for ourselves. I mean, human women don't farrow, they give birth. But when a pig does it, when a pig gives birth, she farrows. It's a tradition of keeping ourselves separate from animals, I think. So this farrowing crate prevents her rolling on top of the piglets. But of course it completely immobilizes her, and she can't have the kind of experience she would have as a mother normally, and it no doubt frustrates her instincts to be with her piglets, to lick them and do the things that she does if she has more space. These are the pigs when they're taken from her and they've grown up a bit. They're also indoors. They're also very crowded. And they also have nothing much to do, although pigs are very intelligent, playful animals and will do lots of different activities if they have space and a place to do it. And here are the battery hens, the hens that produce more than 99% of the eggs produced in the United States. Are in small wire cages like this. Some of them are stacked 4 or 5 tiers high, some of them are just 1 tier, depends on the system. But they are extremely crowded in these conditions, and again there's a lot of ammonia. You can see the droppings on this, you can see the droppings on these shelves here, right? That's all accumulated food droppings. And this shows you a bit better how crowded they are, and the conveyor belts that the eggs are moving along. What is that? Oh, sorry. Where are we going? Okay. So these are the conditions in which most of the animal products in the United States are produced, and in most developing countries. And I think it's pretty obvious that they cause prolonged suffering and distress to animals. And that even on the mainstream view, that doesn't say that animals have rights, or doesn't say that they're entitled to equal consideration or anything like that. Even on the mainstream view, if you ask, well, what are we doing to the animals, and what are we getting out of it? What we're doing to the animals is giving them lives of prolonged misery, basically, when we put them like this. And what are we getting out of it? Well, we're getting animal products a little more cheaply than we would otherwise get. But we have to raise the question about, do we really need this? Do we need as many animal products as we have? I'm not, in this talk, really going to go much into health issues. That's not my particular area of expertise. But it certainly is true that we can live well, adequately, healthily, without animal products, and certainly without nearly as much animal products as we have. I think every medical body would agree that we don't need nearly as much animal products as we have, and most of them will agree that we can live a healthy diet without them. The American Dietitians Association, for example, says that very clearly. So it is really to satisfy a taste preference more than any kind of need for food that we're doing this to the animals. And that's why, as I say, if you think about this kindness-cruelty view that we hold, it's difficult to reconcile with factory farming. Because, after all, we don't think that people's pleasure generally entitles them to be cruel to animals. I think everyone was highly condemnatory about Michael Vick's dogfighting. The fact that Michael Vick presumably got pleasure, and the other people who watched the dogfighting presumably got pleasure from watching the dogfighting, we think is in no way